Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Anti-News Podcast. I'm your host, Katie Grosso, and thank you for tuning in. Today's date is May 31st, and as always, I've got 5 happy stories for you. First off, we've got wind turbines shaped like flowers, a man helping swans with their eggs, and 12 pups are born to an endangered species. After the music break, dandelions have a use other than covering every square inch of your lawn, and rubber duck messages. Wind turbines are a great source of green energy. How they work is by taking the kinetic energy from wind and turning it into electricity. However, as anyone who lives near one can tell you, they're pretty loud, which is not pleasant to be near, and the spinning blades are a threat to birds and bats, who can end up getting caught in them. Vertical wind turbines have the blades going vertically, like a merry-go-round, instead of horizontally like a pinwheel, and while these are more effective and quieter, they're still not all that nice to look at. A company in the Netherlands has decided to take on the challenge of making wind turbines not only effective, but aesthetically pleasing as well, and have taken inspiration from one of their most recognizable plants, tulips. Flower Turbines has created a wind turbine that's shaped like a tulip, and is significantly smaller than the average wind turbine as well. An average wind turbine comes to 152 meters tall, which is about the same height as a 32-story building. The tulip turbines range in sizes from 1 meter to 6 meters, which is about the same height as a giraffe. Also, unlike regular turbines that can't be placed too close together, having a bunch of the tulip turbines all close to one another actually helps them work better thanks to something called the cluster effect. They also are safer for wildlife because they only have 2 vertical blades which are closer together and don't stick out, making them easier for birds and bats to see and avoid. The first step in improving the world is to solve the problems we have. The next step is coming up with better solutions for those problems. We solved the problem of how to make electricity, and then we improved the solution by coming up with green energy like hydro and wind. This is just another improvement on a previous improvement. Something doesn't have to be bad or broken for it to be improved. All that's needed is the desire to make things better. And with that attitude, you can improve almost anything. Nature is all about survival of the fittest. And while that can mean many things, nothing's going to help you if you can't even get to the starting line. Not all offspring are going to make it in the animal kingdom, which is why many species have large clutches of eggs or litters. This way, there's a better chance that at least 1 or 2 will survive to adulthood, but in the case of this swan pair, not even 1 egg made it to hatching. Each year, the eggs either get stolen by foxes or washed away by flooding waters. But this year, one man decided that he wasn't going to sit by while it happened again. Rob Adamson, who lives and works at Jones Boatyard in St. Ives, England, had previously raised an orphan swan named Sid a few years ago. The two had grown so close that when it was time to release Sid, the swan didn't initially want to go. When the story went around, it earned Adamson the nickname the Swan Man, which he happily holds. For the past decade, he's watched as a pair of swans tried and failed to have hatchlings, but every year their eggs were either eaten or washed away. This year, however, he couldn't stand by any longer. Adamson told the BBC, "You're not supposed to interfere," but it had got to the point where they were all going to die. I couldn't go to bed knowing that. I knew I would regret it if I didn't do anything to save them. I needed to make sure they survived. In order to make sure the eggs made it, Adamson made a makeshift raft and tied it to the bank. Then, During the night, he lifted the nest with 9 eggs and 1 hissy mama, all while Dad watched closely. With how beautiful swans are, it's easy to be surprised by how violent they can be. But then you remember that they're related to geese and it all makes sense. Surprisingly though, or maybe because they knew of what he had done before for the orphaned swan, neither parent attacked him. Once the nest was safe, Adamson put up a fence to protect from foxes and other predators. While nature is about survival of the fittest, sometimes a bit of help is needed. Getting help isn't weakness. Sometimes it's the strongest thing you can do, because you're admitting that you can't do it on your own. It's hard to acknowledge something like that, but you're all the stronger for it. Did you know that, per body size, humans have the biggest brain? Because of that, we come out with underdeveloped brains. But many species are born with their brain already fully developed, particularly birds. Regardless of what state we're brought into the world in, all animals come into the world the same way, by being born. Some species only have 1 or 2 babies at a time, while others can have 10 or even more. Having children is absolutely vital for any species that wants to continue onward or grow their population. So when 12 red wolf pups were born, it was a huge boost to their endangered population. The red wolf is an endangered species with only 15 to 20 left in the wild. The rest are in zoos, and at North Carolina Zoo, 3 litters of red wolves were born within 3 days of each other. This brings the number of red wolves in the breeding program up to 36, the second largest in the United States. All moms and pups are healthy and happy, as are those working on the program. Congratulations to the North Carolina Zoo for playing an essential part in the survival of this critically endangered species, says Secretary Reed Wilson of the North Carolina Department of Natural and Cultural Resources. These births are important because many of our wolves, once matured, have been moved to other breeding packs to continue to help bring this species back from near extinction. Our hope is that more and more red wolves can soon be placed into the wild. As I said when starting this story, babies are important for continuing the species, but they're also a huge responsibility. If you don't think that you're ready for parenthood, or that you don't want kids period, that's okay. If you're still on the fence about it, think about the pros and cons, and ask others what their experience being parents for the first time was like. If you have the ability to, ask a friend or relative with a young kid if you could babysit them for a day or so to get a feel for it. Remember that every kid is different, and that every person is different too, and that only you can decide what's right for you. One thing that is right for everyone is to have a good time, so let's go to the music break. that was Bright Future by Silent Partner. Now, on to our last two stories. Spring. You always know it's here once again when you hear the birds chirping, smell that fresh spring air, and see the fields of dandelions sprout seemingly out of nowhere. Especially in Canada, as soon as spring comes around, dandelions make their mark, taking up every free inch of space, and before you know it, there's more yellow than there is green. You can make tea or salad out of them, but what if I told you that there's an even better use for this pesky weed? That use? As rubber. The idea of using dandelions as rubber first started back during World War II, when the Soviet Union was trying to become more self-sufficient. The United Kingdom, United States, and Germany were also experimenting with making rubber out of dandelions instead of rubber trees. After the war, everyone eventually went back to rubber trees and petrochemicals, but the idea of rubber made from dandelions has resurfaced thanks to Continental Tires, a German manufacturing company. Previously, they made bike tires out of dandelion rubber, called Taraxacum, and won the 2021 German Sustainability Award for Sustainable Design. The fact that we came out on top among 54 finalists shows that our urban Taraxacum bicycle tire is a unique product that contributes to the development of a new, alternative, and sustainable supply of raw materials, stated Dr. Carla Recker, Head of Development for the Taraxacum Project. As we all know, dandelions can grow almost anywhere, and unlike with regular tires, you only need to add hot water for the extraction process. Regular tires require the use of organic solvents, which can pose an environmental risk if they aren't disposed of properly. On top of that, dandelions are an important early-season food source for bees, who need all the help they can get as it is. Despite being considered a nuisance, dandelions have so many uses. Tea, salad, and now it's rubber. If we change the way we look at something, we can find all sorts of uses that we never would have thought of before. Try looking at things in your own house that would have otherwise just been thrown away, and see if you can think of new ways to use it. For example, use old jars as storage for dry goods. This is a pretty simple example, but if you can use just a little creativity, you can make anything you set your heart on. We're all familiar with rubber ducks. They're one of the most popular toys ever created and a bath time staple. They never fail to bring even a small smile to a person's face when given a squeak. And during these tough times, we all need a reason to smile, even a little one. Jim Preston of Menlo Park, California, has found a creative way to help brighten up people's day. For the past couple of months, Preston's been getting up early and spelling out messages using rubber ducks. Simple things like be kind or be strong, along with simple pictures like hearts and stars. One of his neighbors even asked if he could do something special for her. Chandrama Anderson told GNN that although the pictures had been posted to the app next door, she had first seen them on her walks. For my husband's 60th birthday under COVID lockdown, when there weren't many ways to make a birthday special, I asked Jim to use his ducks to spell out Happy Birthday Locke, and he did. She said that he was thrilled, and the messages have helped make people feel better during these difficult times. Even when the messages aren't directed to anyone in particular, it's plain to see that the messages come from the heart, as should everything that we do. If you put your heart and soul into something, it'll show through, even if the product isn't as great as you had hoped for. Here's today's advice. If you ever find yourself lost in a forest and don't want to or can't wait for someone to come find you, find the nearest river. Follow it in one direction, and eventually you'll find civilization. While you're walking, you could also take a drink from the river, but only if it's running water. Never drink from still water because it can be full of bad bacteria or parasites. That's it for today, everyone. I hope you enjoyed it. If you would like to support this podcast, you can find it on YouTube, Spotify, Google and Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and Spreaker. Links can be found in the description, and until next time, remember that there is still some good in the world, you just gotta look for it. Take care out there, everyone.